sticky. Oh. Although, this liquid should help me.
What is up, everybody? Bishop here with Rookies After Hours, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about a game that just came out called Metamorphosis. This game, loosely based on the novel by Franz Kafka, basically creates an adventure for our protagonist based on the principle that he gets transformed or metamorphosed into a bug. Metamorphosis, basically you play as Gregor. He turns into a very small bug, and he sets out on this journey. Basically, there are other bug characters, there are humongous human beings, everything that you can imagine with, from sort of a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids situation, that's what you're getting. The game is developed by Ovid Works, and it's published by All In Games, and it came out on August 12th. The reviews so far on Steam are very positive. It is on all consoles, Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, PS4, and on Microsoft Windows. And it follows the events. You get really quickly into the mechanics of the whole game. There is no setup to how he gets transformed into a bug. That's most of the cool stuff, is that they just go right into it, okay? It's an action-adventure game. It's first person. It's a platformer. Mostly, because you're not really fighting anything. You're mostly solving puzzles and figuring out the game mechanics. Now, what really got me from the get-go for this game is the way that the mechanics feel so satisfying, so convincing. If you play this game with headphones, the slithering sound, the little tiny legs of this bug, it feels really nasty. You really feel like you are in the body of a bug. And that's the most important thing that a game like this has to nail, right? And it does so perfectly. So you get going right away. You figure, you know where this is going, so that's not a problem. But what matters here is that they really get the ambient very well. The way that the mechanics and the puzzles, they work around your weight. You have to, say, turn off a fan so that it doesn't push you away. It's actually a little conflicting because you're also a really strong bug that can move certain gears and mechanisms, but we're not going to get really into that. And there is slow progression, okay? You're not really getting powers or developing new bug-like abilities, but you are exploring the world. And that is the most important thing about this game. That you're going through the world, you are figuring stuff out, and you are trying to make sense out of everything. Okay? What happened? How do you turn back? How do you survive? And everything feels so menacing. That's the cool thing about the games, that they just pick up in this really they don't do a lot of setup. That's the word, setup. They're not explaining to you stuff. You're just trying to figure stuff out from the very beginning. And you don't really do it, okay? There are certain mechanics that start to come along. I had to figure this one out. It took me a while, but you use sticky substances. I think the first one is probably mustard. You use it in order to make your legs sticky enough to adhere to certain surfaces. And you can also use ink and some other things. And the game just implements the mechanic really well. Surprisingly enough, for a game like this, which appears to be very linear, sometimes you would have to figure out what the route that you have to take is, or which one works for you. I spent a while, I was looking for a book in a bookshelf as a tiny little bug. Everything feels humongous, and I didn't know what route to take. And nothing really seemed to take me to the book I was looking for. So I had to improvise using the stickiness, because it does it really well. The surfaces you can adhere to, it feels very convincing, and I used that in a way that felt totally mine. I don't think the game specifically expected me to do it like that, but it worked very well, and I managed to get where I was going. And from there on, everything, by the point things started to feel a little repetitive because you're in a room with shelves and there's like books and that kind of stuff, things actually open up quite a bit. And you start interacting with environments from the outside. You know, the huge mushrooms, the puddles that feel like oceans and rivers, and you interact with, you know, pencils or bridges, and the tiny things in the environment, they become what help you traverse it, right? And you are going towards something. You're trying to get to the tower. The tower is, well, it's hard to explain. It's basically an ethereal place. It's the entity that's responsible to a certain degree for what's happening to you. The interesting thing is that you're not the only one this has happened to. Might be kind of a spoiler, but you start meeting other bugs very early on, and the way you interact with them is truly great. But the really cool thing about the game is that it always has you on your toes. You're always feeling uncomfortable. That's what you need to be feeling if you're in the body of a bug. You feel uncomfortable. You feel vulnerable. You cannot fall from too high. You cannot get in the water. You have to be careful from disinfectant and from anti-bug liquid. You have to be careful for those things because you are fragile and you will die very easily. And that is extremely useful. The footage I've been using is mostly from the first hour and a half, maybe 2 hours of the game. I am about a little bit over halfway through. I have not completed the game yet, but I wanted to get this review done so far because the most important thing about this game, even though the story is actually quite interesting, is the mechanics, okay? The mechanics are what get you going. If you enjoy a good platformer, you're probably gonna love this. The visuals are very, very pleasing. I think this style is it fits perfectly with what we're looking at, and it has a very good enough level of detail so that you can truly appreciate whether you see a matchbox in the middle of the ground, or you see this pencil, or you see the textures that you have to climb up on. That is very useful, and it's really immersive. The other bugs, they are really nasty and creepy, and it's funny because the way they interact, it's basically like talking to another person, right? So eventually you start to get used to it, and it starts to feel normal. It stops being this super uncomfortable thing, which is funny because that's pretty much what's going on to the character, the player, the being Gregor. He is getting used to the mechanics of being a bug, and he's just going through the motions to try to find out what to do, how to reverse it. Now, to sum the whole thing up, I have to accept it is not a perfect game. Sometimes you're not really sure how to get where you have to get. The routes aren't perfectly clear, and that can make you lose quite a bit of time very often. So that is the element that will sometimes probably slow your pace down, and that's something you don't want in a game like this. But overall, the environment, it really catches you well enough, and the mechanics, they are satisfying and fulfilling enough that you can enjoy it if this is your kind of game. The game is $25 right now on Steam, and I believe it's actually quite worth it. I think you should definitely give it a try if you are into platformers. And well, anyway, guys, I'm not gonna entertain you a lot more. I wanted you to see and hear this last clip, so I'm probably going to stop it right here. Please leave a comment if you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed the gameplay. Let me know what you thought about it. Subscribe and let me know what I can do to improve, because I'm just starting with this, but I think there's a lot to talk about. So have a good one, and see you guys next time.
Comfortable in your new skin, or rather
exoskeleton. Everything seems unfamiliar and bizarre. Wondering if this is all just a bad dream? Relax. Everything is fine.
Fine? This is fine?